Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Security. Dan, I'm so tired. I'll get the wrong trade show. Welcome back to Secure World Expo 2017 in Seattle, Washington. My next guest is Mr. Dan Jensen. He's a cybersecurity expert. And today we're going to talk about how cybersecurity actually saves lives. Dan happened to be walking by the booth today, and he mentioned that, and I said, I get it. I get it. I get it. I get it. And you were surprised that I got it, because you think a lot of people don't get it. Welcome to the show, Dan.
Thank you, Chuck.
So tell me what you mean by the internet and cybersecurity can save lives. What's going on out there that makes you think that?
Well, for every attack that we have, some of those attacks are for money to fund other criminal activities such as terrorism and human trafficking and espionage and drug trafficking. In other words, when we see that we have ransomware or we see that credit cards are stolen, where is that money going to? Some of the time, it's going to organizations as overhead that do the other activities.
I mean, it's just a personal opinion. It's my hunch as a former police officer that more of it's going there than we think. In other words, this isn't Billy sitting in his basement and stealing quarters off your internet site to go down to the arcade. This is organized crime, organized state activity as well, right? And they're not just stealing money to put in their personal bank account. They're doing something with it. They're funding terrorism. They're funding child trafficking. They're funding all kinds of things. I believe that. I don't have the research to back it up, but I'll bet you do.
Yes, and actually one of the things that we also know is that it's come out that one way that North Korea is getting hard currency is through cyber attacks.
Right.
So
yeah, they don't care about sanctions because they're stealing people's bank accounts to the tune of $1 billion.
Absolutely,
right.
Absolutely.
So tell me how, as a cyber a practitioner, an expert, or somebody that's in the business, tell us how we're really saving lives from this perspective, as opposed to just, we're putting up a firewall, we're doing some software, we're protecting against things, but ultimately, what we're protecting against is saving lives. I believe that.
That's absolutely true. And I like to think of an example of a 14-year-old girl in Moscow who's being trafficked by cyber organizations. And she has what she feels is no one on her side.
Right.
And we are the people that are on her side. We're the people that are saying, okay, we're going to stop your boss from getting fungible assets through cyber, which helps him traffic you and helps him do the drug trafficking or espionage or whatever he's going to do. Typically, a lot of that is through bots, and the bots are sold and they make money a lot of different ways.
Do you think that most people understand this that are in the cyber business? Or does their view of the internet kind of stop at their firewall? In other words, I kept you out, I kept the bad guy out of my company, I'm done. Or I did have a breach, our insurance company, Lloyd's of London, is going to pick up and pay for it maybe. I don't have to worry about that part. We're gonna try to do better next time. Do you think people actually view beyond that firewall about what's really going on in that? Some would call it the dark web, so to speak.
Absolutely not. I think that honestly that a lot of it is seen as what we protect on this side as credit cards or companies or whatever, with not a real idea or passion for the idea that we are also saving young girls' lives from people who would dehumanize those girls or dehumanize those sex slaves or dehumanize and support espionage. So no, I don't really think that we yet have the full picture of what cybersecurity is involving.
Now somebody must, right? I mean, we're capable of having the full picture, so somebody must have the full picture. Who has the full picture in this? I would not expect a guy from Dell Computers that works in the security department and cybersecurity that defends the company against cyber attacks. I wouldn't expect that guy to have the picture of what's going on any more than I would expect them to know what's going on in downtown Seattle as far as human slavery trafficking in some alley, right? That's not their world, so to speak. But surely somebody in cyber knows about this stuff. Is that the government? Is it the FBI? Who knows about what's going on? And why aren't those people getting this word out?
I have a feeling that some of it is classified.
Oh, really? Okay.
But on the other hand, I have a feeling that it would be the FBI, Homeland Security, sometimes local police departments who are actually trying to catch criminals. So there are a number of people who know, and while they may not be able to give specifics of attacks, I do feel it would be good for the message to get out there to say, we know these are happening, and hopefully that will get the person who's at Dell Security just to have the higher motivation that gives.
Here's my theory on that. We had that horrific church shooting, right, last week, or was it the beginning of this week? I can't remember. Everything's so close together now. We had the guy in New York City running people over in a car. Those are let's call them real world, physical world attacks, where people die right in front of you. They die at the hotel in Las Vegas. We see it on TV. It's tangible. Is that a good word to describe it, right?
Yes.
Where cyber stuff is, it's in a computer and it's somewhere else and it's in Russia, and I can't get my head around that. That's not really a threat to me. If they knew that it's the most serious threat to mankind, which I believe, right, and I don't think I'm exaggerating when I say that based on what I know, because I know some stuff I wish I didn't know, right? I think they would be more motivated. If they really felt that they were physically in danger in their front room, they would do something about it. I'm not sure we can ever bring that point across to people because of the nature of what the internet is.
And I think it's our job to try to bring that.
We should try. I agree, and that's what I try to do with my show. I try to get it out there, right? But it's an uphill battle, right?
Yeah, I do have a feeling that I brought it up in one meeting, and they said, "Oh, you want more cybersecurity staff?" And I said, "No. The truth of the matter is, I want the cybersecurity staff to understand who we're really protecting."
That's a great point. Do you want them to care?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, very interesting. Now, I love statistics on this show. Do you got any stats for me?
No, I don't actually, but I would tell you in any given week, one of those attacks involves somebody else's life.
Interesting.
And I can say absolutely.
Well, certainly on that one, yeah. Any attack.
Yeah. So the truth is, from what I'm hearing, is the majority of the attacks, over 50%, are actually done by organized crime.
Okay. Or now, when you say organized crime, is that separate from a state actor?
Not necessarily, but organized crime can actually sell information to state actors.
Well, that's true. Could people work together? That's right. Yeah.
And I guess in another way of looking at it, state actors doing acts of war or organized crime like North Korea might be doing. It is an act of war internationally. It is organized crime as it looks locally.
Yeah. No, it's a problem that it's hard to get anybody's head around. I just heard last week, or maybe a couple weeks ago, that in 2015, I think it was 2015 or 16, the entire internet, all content on the entire internet worldwide could be put into one human brain. Just one.
Uh-huh.
That's the ability for our brain, the capacity of our brain to store data and handle things. I find that remarkable. But what's also remarkable about it is it's scary, because if you look at that from a time perspective, we are in the infancy of the internet, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, I was on the internet in 96 with the dial-up 9K modem, and people thought I was crazy. What are you doing? And that was 20 years ago or more, right? But that's 20 years is a blip in history. That's nothing, right? We are literally at the beginning of what the internet's going to become. It's going to become self-aware. I think the internet is just going to be just like Skynet in what was it? The Terminator, right? And it's going to be, and the state actors may become the internet itself. I mean, it's really science fiction, but not really, because we're halfway there with things that were science fiction 20 years ago.
Absolutely.
So I'm worried about that people don't get. If people don't understand that the entire internet can be put inside your head right now, and if people can't understand that, I don't see how they can understand all the other stuff that's going on. I mean, it's like saying that if you pour your Coke into the ocean in Santa Monica Pier, that's the capacity. It's so insignificant now.
Yes.
But 6 billion people had the internet in their head. How much would that be? So if we don't get a handle on it now, if we don't figure out what the initiatives are and the motivations and the drives to stop and fix this now, it will be uncorrectable, I believe. What do you think?
I think, honestly, one of the things that we have to look at is the possibility of going back to paper.
That's a great point.
Because I think, honestly, the internet is only as good as we have power to run the computers,
right,
run the systems, and if we have a EMP that can shut down our power grid, then guess what? We also have no internet.
That's right. We are too dependent on it.
So the truth of the matter is I think that we, in disaster recovery, we're thinking of another computer. We're thinking of another system, another way. But it all depends on a power grid that apparently is easily attackable.
Oh, yeah. There was the first breach of a power grid happened about 2 years ago in the Ukraine, and they think it might have been Russia that did it, but nobody knows for sure. But it was the first time a municipal power grid was taken down around Christmas 2 years ago. And you never heard about it. It wasn't front page news. It should have been front page news in everybody's house. But it was kind of like the cyber people knew about it, but whatever. But, if we took down the power in the United States for a day, it'd be a disaster. If it was a week, it'd be a zombie apocalypse. It'd be it. America might be out of business, literally. So I agree with this whole paper thing. I think that might be the next niche industry to make $1 billion on.
Right.
Paper, what do you mean? Well, you're only 20 years old. You don't understand. Things used to be on paper with carbon copies, right?
Yes,
go back to that and make some money on it. It's possible.
Actually, Chuck, there was another major power grid outage in Brazil.
Well, when was this?
Where I think it was early 2000s.
I didn't know that. Okay.
And
all right,
what they did is they said that their computer on their hydroelectric dam was not attackable.
Right.
And so...
Yeah, when you say things like that, people prove you're wrong.
Yeah. And anyway, Brazil was down for 1/3 of its electricity for about 2 weeks.
Wow.
So I mean, the truth is, one of the things in our field is we can't get arrogant.
No, that's true.
And we can't say that we are unattackable because it's just not simply the case.
It's an invitation. There was that email service out of Switzerland, I think it was, that were bragging that, our email is like a Swiss bank account. It's not crackable. People can't come to it. And the second they started saying that, they had 1 billion attacks, whereas before they had 100,000, right? And now all of a sudden, people are going to prove that they're wrong. So I agree with you. We can't be arrogant. I've spoken with a lot of people in the cyber biz. I don't get the impression that as companies and operators and products that they're arrogant. I think they know this is super serious, and I think they're approaching it from like, we're going to do the best we can. Who do you think is arrogant in the business? Do you think it's the government players that are a little arrogant? Oh, we're the CIA, we can protect you. I mean, I know there is an arrogancy in that, but that's a death note if you become arrogant. Who do you think is kind of putting that attitude out there?
I think sometimes it happens at the technician level, honestly. Because
interesting. Okay.
They are good at their silo of things.
Right.
And yet what they have to understand is their silo is only a silo of a bigger picture. I also think that there are some people who are in the field of cybersecurity and they're not really seeing the full picture of it, so they represent themselves as experts.
Right.
When in reality, there are no experts in cybersecurity.
That's a very, let me think about that. That's a very interesting concept. How could you be? How could you know everything? There's too much to know.
There's absolutely too much.
Very interesting. Okay, good.
And I'm not an expert in cybersecurity, but I understand the big picture. And the big
Right.
picture is we are all about saving lives. We are all about humanizing the victims who are being dehumanized by others.
No, I think that is the point. If we can get the average person to be aware of that, I think it would go a long way. I always tell people, when I was in contract security company business, I'd say, "Who's your number one client?" And I'd say, "Mom next door." And they'd say, "What are you talking about? They don't buy security products." I said, "I know, but they're married to the people that are. Or the husbands are married to the wives that are the buyers or the people that run security." And when they get pissed off and say, "Why aren't you doing something about this?" right, at the average citizen level, that's when things start to move, right? Not by the government, not by, the guy that says he's an expert, we're going to tout this latest, greatest thing. It's the average person that pushes initiatives, the average citizen that swells up eventually and says, "We're not going to do this anymore. You got to change it. You got to do something else." Look at the politics on Facebook, right? I mean, that has changed a lot of things for better and worse just by people just getting out there and saying something about it. So I think we need to look at the average citizen's voice and listen to it and say they can contribute, and what they can contribute is their awareness.
Yes.
And if they contributed their awareness and just did something simple like, "I'm going to turn my computer off every night so it's turned off for 16 hours. And now there's 16 hours where somebody can't get into my computer." Boy, what would that do to help everybody? Very simple things, you know what I mean?
Honestly, Chuck, it would do a lot because bots are dependent on many, many machines doing like denial of service. And that means many, many home computers.
A lot of them are involved in that, right?
Denial of service. So one of the things that I see is that you have to marry the idea that cybersecurity, national security, and physical security are interchangeable.
Exactly, yeah. They're not like partners. They are literally interchangeable. I agree with you on that. Right.
Yes, absolutely. And one example of that is when Georgia had a battle with Russia. Okay, what Russia did to shut down the Georgia infrastructure was to do a denial of service on their communication so that even our State Department, our embassy, could not communicate out. Well, what did they use? They used millions of computers in North America to do the denial of service on the Georgian telecom infrastructure.
Very interesting. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. So my crazy idea is not crazy.
Not at all.
Make your computer turned off 3/4 of the day, and you're helping the cause.
Yes, and then although there's no such thing as perfect virus protection, give virus protection.
Right.
And remember that just because your virus protection says you're clean doesn't mean it's working.
No, that's true too. There's so many new things it's hard to keep track of it. Well, Dan Jensen, I'm going to say you are a cybersecurity expert. I know you don't want to say it, but I'm going to call you one because you are aware of what you don't know. And what you don't know is what makes you the expert, if you think about it. Because you're willing to learn. You're willing to say, "I'm going to go find out." And that's what a really expert needs to be these days, not to recite a bunch of things that they read in a book or that they tested in theory and all that kind of stuff. It's curiosity, imagination, innovation that make people experts. That's the whole secret right there. Now, you don't have a website, but we can find you on LinkedIn, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And Dan Jensen, Jensen, on LinkedIn. All right.
Yes.
Well, let's look up Dan. Dan has a great perspective on this. I think it's kind of a holistic, physical, philosophical. There's all kinds of components to your view, which make it really valuable, I think.
Well, thank you very much, Chuck. I really appreciate this.
Well, thanks for coming on SecurityGuideTV.com here at Secure World 2017 in Seattle, Washington. And until next time, see you later.
Bye now.